It is I don't know, at some point after midnight. It's like 12:30 or something like that. And I just caught up on the recent information about the things that happened in Las Vegas a few days ago. And, just looking at the response to Trump with Puerto Rico, and, it just feels like and that also there's like information about like the Russian, not hacks, but like, I guess hacks and buying Facebook ads, and like there's just like so much information about things that are frustrating and upsetting. Earlier tonight, I was having dinner with a friend from out of town. He was talking about, all the security precautions that he takes, like protecting his credit card from people, with these that now have these machines that can like scan your credit card when it's in your your wallet in your pocket, and how you can't go on Wi-Fi because you are not like in a public place because you never know if someone's hacking it. It's just like, I don't know, I guess it just kind of added this stress of thinking about all the ways that we as human beings, like, it's like a dog-eat-dog world out there, kind of. It feels like that a lot of times, I've been meaning to make a video about, or I've been thinking about making a video. I couldn't really decide if I want to do this or not, but I saw the movie Mother, the new Darren Aronofsky film, last week with Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem. And I was drawn to see this movie because it apparently is about climate change. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I also really love Aronofsky. But I kept hearing all these like negative things about this movie. I saw the movie and I was moved by it and also kind of like horrified in a way, because, not to ruin it, but a big message in this film is just kind of how humanity like destroys things and how just destructive we are as human beings. And I guess like there's just a lot of information out there about humanity kind of seeming pretty awful at times. It's so easy to get depressed about this, to feel like things are hopeless. And then I look at things like, for me, stresses come from things like not feeling good enough, and often things that trigger me are when I see other people who seemingly are more successful than me, and sometimes my ego gets involved and I feel like, oh, why are they getting all this attention? Is it because of the way that they look? Is it because of their age? Is it because of luck? Is it because they've cheated? All these different things, especially with social media. You see people being rewarded for a lot of superficial things, and then people succeeding out of pure luck, or succeeding because maybe they've kind of bought their way to the top or faked their way to, like, there's just a lot of I guess rewards in our lifetime for being superficial, and of course that's a judgment, but it just feels like culturally we're in this weird time where we're so obsessed with image, and we're obsessed with getting validated, we're obsessed with our appearances. We all want to, well, I shouldn't say we all, but a lot of people seem to just want to be praised and seen and all of that, and people are depressed because they're not living the lives that they want to live. And amidst all of that, we have all this conflict, especially in the U.S. right now, with the government, and people never seem happy with the way the government is being run, and you know, never happy with what president we have. Like, you know, some people didn't like Obama, and now people don't like Trump, and there's like all these ongoing like fights about all of these things. And then we have things like natural disaster, and that's a whole nother story, right? Like, is natural disaster caused by climate change and all these things that, you know, are we contributing to that too? It just feels like there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of destruction, there's so much fear, as I was talking about in yesterday's uncensored video, and confusion, and it's really overwhelming, right? And in my field of veganism too, there's so much there too. Vegans often feel like, you know, frustrated with people who aren't vegan, and wanting so badly for other people to understand this way of life. And I guess it just feels like there's just so much fighting. There's fighting against, I guess it's like resistance, basically, right? There's a lot of resistance. There's resistance against the things that we don't have mainly. You know, we want something and we can't have it. So there's just like almost like this desperation. I really think that is kind of the theme here, right? So that comes down to not having whatever else. Like, you can go on and think about anything that you don't have and other people don't have. And it's like humans are desperate to get everything that we want. And we especially in the US, we are raised to believe in some way that we can have whatever we want, right? Like, this is the country based on freedom, and basically if you want something, you can make it happen. And I think that's a beautiful thing, right? But it just feels like it's created a lot of conflict. It's created this conflict of some people not knowing how to get what they want, and so they become frustrated with it, right? So when you want something really badly and you don't get it, you start to wonder, well, why can't I have it, and how do I get it? And then that's where a lot of desperation can come from. You know, there's people that go about things in a little bit more of an ethical way, but there's so many people in this country, but also throughout the world, but I'll just say in this country, that are just desperate to get what they want. And our country is kind of based on helping people figure out ways to get what they want against all odds, right? So you want to lose weight, you want your body to look a certain way. Well, if you have enough money, you can make yourself look pretty much any way that you want, right? There's surgeries, there's outfits, there's products, like anything. There's so many solutions to just get what you want appearance-wise. You want to make money. Well, there are ways to do that through education and jobs and careers, and there are also ways to cheat the system and, you know, screw other people over, like, you know, hacking into people's credit cards and bank accounts, and doing sleazy things online, and all of these things that, you know, it's like, again, it comes down to this desperation. People want money so badly, or people want fame, and so some people go about it by developing their talents and finding, like, going after the long game of fame. But then so much of our culture right now is based on short-term fame, and people doing whatever it takes to become famous, to become recognized. And fame is now associated with how many followers you have online and how many views you get. And I guess it just, like, overall, it comes down to this weird sense of always wanting something. And I don't think that I'm alone in this feeling of not feeling enough, right? So if you look at the root of my challenges, one of my biggest challenges is that feeling of not being enough, and been kind of raised by my family, my mother specifically, as I've talked about, like kind of the elements of narcissism that I dealt with as a child and throughout a lot of my life. But my mom is a product of that too, right? Where did that come from? Where did she not feel like she was enough? And then me feeling so attuned into not being enough, like picking up on all these cultural things and then noticing it in other people. Like, I was talking to another friend tonight. It's like this not enoughness is such a huge thing. It becomes this this perpetuating thing. So then you wonder, like, these tragedies that happen in Las Vegas, for example, what was going through this guy's mind? I don't know. I'm fascinated with psychology, and so the thing that I just want to know so badly is what was his motive and why did he do it? What was going on in his mind? Like, was he feeling this resistance and this not good enough? Did he not feel good enough? Was he acting out because he didn't feel good enough, so he wanted other people to suffer? Is he feeling like he's not living the life he wants and somehow he's projecting that onto other people and thus feels like other people should die? And, like, why do we cause all of this cruelty to other people? Is it often because, again, are we projecting? Or do we want scapegoats? Do we want somebody else to suffer instead of us? Are we suffering so much that we want other people to suffer? And I think in some way we can all relate to that on some level, right? So perhaps this guy that killed all these people in Las Vegas, it's easy to say he has a screw loose, right? Or maybe he's part of some terrorist organization. Like, people are just automatically go to those things. But what if he really wasn't that far off? What if the screw was only slightly loose than most of us, right? Because deep down, so many of us are suffering from such similar things that are not that far off from maybe something that this person may do. And this is why these things keep happening. People are talking so much about gun control now, and it's like, is gun control the issue? Are background checks the issue? Or is heightened security going to solve it? I don't know. I feel like when you look at these broader things, this is why I bring up, like, this movie Mother, for example, is just like, is this just the path that we're on as humanity? We have developed access to so many things. Again, coming down to wanting so much, right? We want control, we want accessibility, we want things faster. So we've developed all this technology to get things done faster, to have access to things quicker and easier. And so that allows us to get things like these guns, right? Like, you look back 50 years ago or so, I don't know that much about gun history, but, like, getting a gun back then, people aren't even thinking that way. But now you can go on the internet and you look up, where do I get a gun and what gun does this and how do I, think about the resources that this man must have had at his fingertips. What does he have to do? He looks up when this concert happens. I'm very curious why he picked this concert, what the story is about that. But let's just say he has some specific reason for wanting to kill people at this specific concert. It's so easy. In a matter of minutes, you can find out when this concert happens. You can book the hotel. You can get the hotel rooms that you want. You can figure out a way to get a gun. It's like the access we have to these things is right there at our fingertips, right? But even if we took away that access, we have become so advanced as humans now and so determined to get the things that we want that there's always a way around it. And that's the scary thing too, is we try to learn all these lessons and we try to block all these walls, but I guess, like, the bigger picture is the thing that we just keep missing. And this is why, like, I kind of want to do this movie on Mother now, because it's just this idea that humanity will find a way to what's the word I want to use? Self-implode. Because the things that we want so badly, the things that we think are so important, often lead to our destruction, right? All this selfishness, all this desire, we are taught from such a young age to want things, to feel like we're not good enough. And we're looking outside of ourselves for so much, right? And this is the thing that I keep coming back to in my life, is like, I've been training myself to be so self-aware, and I've been looking for all these ways to work through these emotions. And it always comes down to me. It's not about any external factor, right? It always comes down to us as humans. And if we are not trained and taught to look within ourselves to heal all of these things, like, who knows what destruction we will cause. And I'm not, it's complicated and yet sometimes seems so simple, right? And it's not meant to say that I have all the answers. Of course I don't, but it's like, what if instead of looking for all of these ways to try to block people, prevent people from causing this destruction, we look at ways to heal them as humans, right? And then we want to put people that we call mentally ill, on medications or in hospitals. It's still covering up something. Like, what is happening with these people? Is it that they are born this way? And if so, how did this man live for 64 years and not raise a single red flag, right? Is he really that mentally ill, or is he really perhaps just slightly different from you and I? Have you ever been so enraged? I'd love to hear it in the comment, right? Like, have you ever been so enraged that you felt like you could do a lot of harm or even kill someone or something, right? I've had that a few times in my life. I feel blessed to not experience a lot of rage, but I've definitely felt rage before. And rage is such a primal human thing that most of us have felt it on some spectrum or another, right? And so there's part of each of us that I guess just feels like not that far away from doing something horrible, right? And yet we want to distance ourselves so much from people that cause these tragedies. And again, not to excuse them whatsoever. It is still absolutely horrible. But I guess my feeling is like we're ignoring the deeper issues here and thinking that we can lock people up, put them on medication, sentence them to death, add extra security, do all these we can try all these measures, but human beings are so intelligent, we will always find a way. We'll always find a way, and if we don't, it's kind of like ultimately we're not going to survive no matter what, right? And that's kind of like the bigger theme of this movie, Mother. And I don't want to give it away at all, but without going too much in depth, there's this thing of like if human beings get so out of hand that we are either going to destroy ourselves or someone or something else is going to destroy it because of that, right? Like, because of all of the selfishness, because of the lack of unity, we just, and not paying attention to the most important things, like because of the superficiality and because of the greed and all of these things that are just not based in love, we are ultimately causing our own destruction. And it's incredibly frustrating for many of us that don't want that, but we all kind of have this personal responsibility in that. Meaning that we can see horrible things happening all around the world. And yet, we might not be playing an active role in causing or preventing those things, right? But in our own day-to-day lives, and something I kind of talked about in yesterday's video, in our own day-to-day lives, many of us do not have a ton of control over our emotions. So what if we looked at ourselves as individuals as representations of every other person, right? Because it's a collective thing. If you think of it as like an energy, a holistic viewpoint, if each of us add up to a massive change, we have to take personal responsibility. Change starts with each person. It starts within. It starts from within. So I guess like it causes that domino effect. It's kind of a hard concept for me to express because I'm still learning how to express this. But, you think about if we took the personal responsibility to become more at peace with ourselves and to be less superficial, to be less greedy, to be more satisfied with the simple things, and to be more loving to one another and to create more unity, if more and more people could find that, and perhaps we could unify and make a big difference. But right now, I guess like the world feels like it's becoming more and more separate, right? And I feel like I have such a long way to go with this, you guys. And I imagine that you do too at some level. It's like I look at what's happening with the hurricane destruction. And it's like there are times where I'm like, I wish I could donate more money to it. But, I've got to figure out my own finances, right? And I have these moments where I'm like, wow, I'm just carrying on with my life. And these people, like in Puerto Rico, are suffering so greatly. And then I wonder, well, if I donate $1 or $2 or 10 or 20, 50, whatever I donate, how much does that help and where does it go? It's like, is that really helping? And so I become conflicted and confused, and it becomes too overwhelming. And then I think about, same thing with Vegas, but then it's like, I guess it's like this feeling of helplessness because of all these crazy things happening and wanting so badly to solve them, and then just getting overwhelmed by it and not feeling like I can do anything. Even though I know it's not true, because again, it comes down to that collective side of things. And then I have to stop myself from feeling stressed about things, again, like I was talking about yesterday. It's like the stress that I go through just in the past few days. I have to stop and say, wait a second, like, I'm lucky to be alive. There are people that have passed away because of this tragedy, and there are people that are in hospitals, and there are multiple tragedies happening around the world. All of this stuff, this death and destruction. And then the other trick comes to not get too down about it. I think being human feels very complicated. But the big key in all of this, you guys, in my opinion, is to just stay positive and loving through it all. It starts with ourselves, right? It starts with choosing positivity and choosing love. And that really begins with choosing to be positive about ourselves and loving ourselves. Because we can't extend love until we really feel that for ourselves. When you feel deep love for yourself, you begin to feel deeper and deeper love for other people. You can extend that so much farther, and you can take bigger action. You know how it is. It's like putting on the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help someone else. Like, if you run out of love for yourself, what can you do for other people? And love for yourself has such a huge ripple effect. It's at the root of so many challenges. Financial challenges, for example, it's a huge focus of mine. It's like the root of so many financial issues stems from lack of love for ourselves. It's not that simple, but it is at the same time. And so think about it. If you feel like you don't have enough money, like I've been feeling lately, is wanting to donate more money to help all these people that are suffering right now. And sitting here thinking, wow, like, okay, when I have more money, I want to donate like every single day to a cause. Like, this desire right now. Or I want to go help someone. Like, what can I do? But first, right now in my life, it's so much about putting the oxygen mask on myself and feeling like I can put it on a few other people, but not as far spread as I want. And the fact that I feel like I want to do so much more just makes me motivated to love myself more, because I know the more that I love myself, the better I am able to act in all of my life. So again, coming back to the money thing, the more that I can shed old layers of fear in myself, the more financially successful I can be, and the more financially successful I can be, the more I'm able to help others, right? It's like ultimately money, all I want to do with money is continue to circulate it. It's like I want to pay my bills, and like every bill that I pay is helping somebody else in some way, right? Like paying rent is helping the landlord, and paying all these bills for electricity and water and internet and my car. That all goes to those individuals at the jobs behind those companies, and the people that run those companies, greedy or not, corporate or not, there's still actual people behind it. And then you see where all this money trickles through. It's just like circulating money constantly. And I would love to have more money in my possession so that I can make sure that it's circulating in places where I actually want it to go. And so it's like, now that I know that the root of a lot of the money blocks and the reason the circulation doesn't come back to me is I have to find more ways to be generous now and more grateful, right? Love, gratitude is so connected to love. So how can I be grateful for what I currently have, and how can I give more despite any obstacles that I'm facing? Like, figuring out all of these things keeps me feeling positive and helps me open up this flow. And if I can do this, I know you can do this, and I know that so many other people can do this. It's like, imagine the shift in this world if more people were thinking in this mindset of gratitude and giving and love and flow and all of that. And so many of us have been raised to view these mindsets as like world peace as woo-woo. I remember growing up, like, before I got into all this spirituality, personal development stuff, I remember like how world peace was like something people would make fun of, right? Like, what do you want? I remember like, I don't know, like one of my memories is like that it was a cliche thing. Like, what are you going to wish for? World peace. Like, Miss America, whoever would talk about that. And it became this cliche thing. Like, I just wish for world peace, right? Like, but the truth is like, of course we all want world peace, right? None of us want to see this death and destruction. None of us want to feel this horrible all the time. And the whole world suffers when one person suffers, right? Like, we see what's going on in Las Vegas, and it creates this ripple effect. We see what's happening in Puerto Rico. We see anytime that we're exposed to any of these horrific things happening anywhere in the world, again, which is happening constantly, war, all of this stuff, starvation, it hurts us. And I think like this movie, Mother is so beautifully done if you really look at it in a deep way, because it's representing everything that I'm talking about here, is like how much harm we're doing to ourselves and how we can easily separate ourselves from it. I'll spoiler alert. I'll share with you this Mother thing. So if you don't mind a spoiler, and you've already seen Mother, or you're never gonna see it and you just want to hear something, I'll go a little bit more in depth. But if you don't want to hear a spoiler about Mother, maybe skip over a few minutes or so. So what I'm referring to in this movie is that Jennifer Lawrence, most people think that she represents Mother Earth in this film, and that Javier Bardem represents God. And that actually isn't a major spoiler, because I actually find it helpful to know that information before you go into the movie. But throughout the movie, things keep getting worse and worse. So you see the movie starts off with Javier Bardem, Jennifer Lawrence, who don't actually have names. I think her name is Mother. I don't know if he refers to her as that, but like, he's referred to as him, aka God. And so there are two human beings living in this house. It starts off with just them, and then a man enters the house and ends up staying with them, a strange man. He kind of represents Adam, right? And then Michelle Pfeiffer comes in, and she kind of represents Eve, perhaps. And then their kids come in, and they represent Cain and Abel, I think. And then, like, other family members, and the house starts filling with more and more people, and the house is kind of meant to represent Earth in a way. And so throughout this movie, you see these human beings causing more and more mayhem. And you're seeing the movie from Jennifer Lawrence's perspective the whole time, and how horrified she is about everything that's happening, but she's trying to be so accepting and loving of it. And so despite her frustrations, she kind of hesitantly allows people into this home, and Javier Bardem representing God, like, is welcoming everybody in, but is also kind of tied into this ego perspective of all these people worshiping him. And so more and more people pile into the home, and it's like you see how selfish these people are throughout this whole film. And yet, despite how selfish, despite how erratic and chaotic everything becomes, Jennifer Lawrence is trying so hard to be a good caretaker and to be a kind, loving person, but really represents so much more, until the very end, where she kind of just starts to literally explode in anger. She can't take it anymore. She has been so beaten down. All she wants to do is live her life in peace, and she's been so taken advantage of that in the end she ultimately self-destructs and kills everybody else in the process, right? So it's representing how deep down we could or let's just say Earth, for example, we can have everything that we want, and we do have everything that we want. We can be taken care of and loved and supported if we are giving that love and support in return. But what's happening throughout this whole film is that the people in the movie pay no attention. They're taking advantage of Mother. They are not even trying to figure out what'll make her feel better. They're sometimes literally criticizing her, destroying her. And what if they had approached everything with love and care? The destruction may not have ever happened, right? And so why is it that as human beings we cause so much destruction? Is it in our nature, or is it in the chaos that we've created for ourselves out of fear, out of greed? I think greed also comes from fear, right? And so on a bigger level, would we have these issues if we could stop for a second and say, do we even need the things that we want so badly? And like it starts to kind of choke me up in this little way, because when I really tap into it for myself, I realize I don't even need anything. You look at Jim Carrey, for example. He's done a few more interviews since the now famous one that he did on the red carpet a few weeks ago, where people were like, "What's going on with Jim Carrey?" He's saying how we don't even exist, right? And so he's gotten into this like super spiritual level with his mind, but it's so inspirational to me looking at someone like him, regardless of how he might be handling it and the nuances that evolve. The overall message of Jim Carrey is like, we're paying attention to such superficial things, and I have to agree. Like, the more I study spirituality and personal development, the more in tune I get with myself. All of my personal problems and many of the problems I see happening amongst other people in my immediate life and then beyond, it often comes down to the simple thing of just stepping back and pausing, taking a deep breath, and realizing that so many of the things that we're concerned about, so many things that we want, are not important. And the only reason that this has become complicated is that we are not taught this. We're not reminded of this. We're not encouraged to think this way. We are encouraged by society, most of us are encouraged to never feel good enough, always want more, to get frustrated. Like, it's perpetuated over and over and over again. Social media is so much about greed. As much as we want to extend love, like if you look at the root of it, even some of the people that look like they're trying so hard to spread love are still consumed with their own egos, myself included. Like, I over the years can identify more and more when my ego is involved with the things. It's incredibly frustrating, because it feels so selfish to be ego-centered. And yet, so many of the decisions that I've made on social media have come out of selfishness and become out of this root of not feeling enough and all of this. And if we just step back and breathe and realize none of this even really matters, and like we're here for such a short amount of time, and as Jim Carrey could say, like, do we even really exist? Is it all just energy? Like, that is the true road to peace, especially in times like this, is that we have to take care of ourselves, and not from a selfish perspective, but because as selfish as it sounds, the only way that we can achieve peace is through self-love and through really stepping back and pausing and focusing on ourselves until we have healed things and till we have become more centered and grounded and at peace with ourselves. And I could be wrong if I take my ego out of the equation. I'm not trying to be right or have a perfect answer or solution, but when I really take a deep breath and focus on that myself, these are where these answers come from. The sadness I feel can be completely let go and washed away by just taking moments to myself, deep breathing, and just letting go. The anger, the frustration, the stress, all of that stuff is just a few breaths away if we really get good at practicing things like meditation, if we really learn how to tune into ourselves. It does take practice, it does take time, but it's also so simple. And the only reason it takes time and practice is because we have to deprogram ourselves from years and years of other types of programming, of being programmed to suffer, to be programmed to be angry, frustrated, sad, feeling not good enough. All of that is just programming, which is so incredibly frustrating. But again, any of the frustrations you feel about that stuff, again, just has to be let go. And I think that's why Jim Carrey, for example, looks so kind of crazily at peace, is because he's had these realizations that none of it really matters. That we have put so much emphasis on superficial things. And all that superficial ultimately leads to a lot of horrible things in one way or another. This big domino effect, right? It's fascinating when you reflect on it all, I suppose. And I guess my inspiration for doing this video is knowing that many of you may feel similar to how I feel. Maybe you feel frustrated and confused and lost and sad and helpless and so many of these emotions that go around. And one of the best things, if not the best thing that you can do, is to tune into yourself, realize that all is well, realize that you are a perfect person and you are full of love deep down inside, even if you don't see it up on the surface, it is there. If you can tune into that loving root of that perfect person that's at your root, that's there, and all the other stuff is just stuff and layers and all of that. When you tune into that, you will feel less suffering. You'll feel less sadness, because all that is, a lot of that I believe is an illusion, right? It's things that we are taught and programmed and conditioned into and used to, habits that we formed. If you think back to your childlike wonder and your peace as a child and a lot of those good feelings that you experienced as a child before you felt more jaded and before you had bad experiences and before you had traumas and all of these things that we go through in life, you can come back to that simpleness that you experienced as a kid if you would remember it. Or that peace that you feel when everything seems to be going right and maybe you're on vacation or maybe you just woke up and before you even have a chance to think, you have those moments of peace in your life. Like, you can extend that throughout all of your life through practices like meditation and deep breathing and tapping, as I talked about recently in my main channel video, and so many other practices, right? You can tune into that more, and when you find that peace, you are able to act more in the world, proceed in the world with more love, and create a positive ripple effect all around you. And I think that I'm feeling more and more compelled to spread that message. Because maybe that is the ultimate way to reducing suffering, which is such a big goal of mine. Is like, we believe, so many of us believe that suffering is part of the human condition, but is it really? Or have we allowed it to be? Have we chosen suffering? Is it really part of life? I don't know that it is, to be honest. There are things that are out of our control, but ultimately we always have control over our state. Which sounds weird. We're conditioned to think that we don't have any control over ourselves. But meditation, I guess, has shown me that, like, if you can tap into yourself on a deeper enough level, you can find that inner peace no matter the circumstances, no matter how awful things are happening to you or around you, near or far. Like, if you can tap into that love and inner peace, you can make it through anything. And again, it's not just coming from a selfish point of view. When you find that inner peace, you are able to go out into the world, help other people, create a ripple effect, and perhaps that is the ultimate form of prevention. Just my 2 cents right now. And I'm saying all of this completely sober. There are moments in this video I'm like, I wonder if people think that I'm like on some drugs. No, it's like the only drug I may be on is having a little alcohol hours ago and caffeine. But aside from that, it's like, but some of these thoughts and the elated feelings that I've experienced remind me of how I felt on, maybe being drunk or experimenting with certain, simple drugs or whatever. It's like, if you know that feeling of bliss that you can get from substances, you can achieve that same bliss through practices like meditation. It's pretty remarkable. So if you know what it's like to feel bliss in your life and all the different forms that we've experienced it, if you could feel that all the time, if you could just snap your fingers emotionally and feel that. Like tapping, I want to talk more about the emotional freedom technique, because the more I learn about that, the more of an amazing tool it feels to me. And I just really wonder what would happen if more and more people were trained in all this stuff. All right. I don't know, enough on this subject. I'm going to go get some more work done. I just wish each and every one of you the best in these challenging times. Okay, I was gonna say the sad thing is, but it seems that this is just par for the course. A lot of very challenging things. We're in a challenging time. So we gotta find a bigger way to deal with it. And I just wish each and every one of you the best, no matter when you're watching this. Maybe you're watching this during another big tragedy, I don't know. But know that there's a lot that you can do, even just if it just makes you feel better. If that's all you see is the immediacy of finding inner peace, you can find that, and it comes a lot from letting go. Thank you guys for watching. I look forward to your comments, and I'll see you soon.